Hey guys, what's going on? James Smiley here. Welcome, Tin Can Crew members. What's going on? I grew up in Seattle for about 20 years. Poor kid, grew up playing baseball in South Seattle, the Rainier Valley, and pretty much all minority neighborhood. And man, I'll tell you, like fishing, the outdoors, those things like saved me. I mean, it literally did. And so anyway, grew up in the outdoors. This is how I saved up money, working at McDonald's, bought a float tube, and started learning to catch fish and just watching fishing and all those kind of things. And man, I'll tell you, like I was one of those kids that like went to the park with a pond in it, and I would tell my stepmom to drop me off like super early at like 4 or 5 or 6 in the morning, and tell her like, hey, when the sun goes down, just come get me. I'll be back right here where you drop me off. And where am I going to be? Somewhere between then, I have no idea. I'll be on somebody's dock, or man, I did the craziest stuff, and typically didn't have any food or water almost the entire day, but eventually saved up, guys, to get my very first little bass raider. This is a Bantam I bought from Bass Pro Shops, and this is a tournament in my club that I took third in fishing against bass boats in a big bass tournament, and I took third. And man, I was so proud of that moment. And some people say like, how did you get into professional fishing and stuff? And for me, one of the things that I did was when career day came around at school, instead of going with my mom or some receptionist or whatever, I asked if I could go with a professional fisherman. And they were like, that's not a job. And I'm like, yeah, it is. And I showed them a Bassmaster magazine that a friend of mine had given me. And I said, look, these people are making like $40,000 in tournaments. And guys, remember, this is in like 1984. Wait, sorry, 1994. So, this like $40,000 would be like hundreds of thousands of dollars now due to inflation. And so I said, this is a real job. And so they got it approved, and the principal actually had to sign off on it. And I went out with this guy named Steve Barton, but he took me fishing and he took me in his big bass boat. And I was just a poor kid, man, never seen nothing like this, never seen a big truck boat, bass boat. And this guy was known as like the big bass fisherman. He was like a big bass fisherman. He wasn't like a tournament fisherman, he was like a big bass fisherman. And so anyway, we caught a 5 pounder in like 15 minutes. 5.5 pound northern largemouth. And guys, this is in March in the Northwest, March. Okay, so it's like super tough fishing. And we caught a 5 pounder right away. And man, that was insane. Like, and I never seen something like that. And I was just hooked, obviously, right? So I'm just totally tripping. And then so he told me like, hey, let's get in a club. I'm starting a club. So I got in a club, and believe it or not, I just realized this. That is him in that white boat. That's Steve in that white boat back there. So got in that club, and then eventually did started doing well. I mean, to be honest, that was my first time I ever did well. It took me all year to finally get a top three, but and get a check. But I just kept putting time in, time on the water. And so then I started holding my own high school tournaments, and this is when I won. Believe it or not, that's a 6 and a 4 officially weighed. Well, officially weighed on a Rapala 1995 scale. But anyway, yeah, I was the bass buster back then, if you can see that. And this was the one that had the little live well in it. It actually had the live well in the middle. If you look at that, look there, it actually had that little live well right there. And so, man, that started tripping me out. Like I put on this tournament. I think I won like $80. Just kids putting, kids were fishing out of rafts, kayaks, canoes, blow up rafts, their dad's boat. I mean, it was the most craziest hodgepodge, but I absolutely schooled these kids. Went on to win the high school state championship the next year. That was a federation thing, and I won the high school state championship, and that's where I was like, dude, I could actually do this. Like didn't know, like high school fishing then was nothing like high school fishing now. But so I bought my first bass boat. This is my first boat. It was a Cajun boat. And so here I am, I think at 18, and I had my first, or no, 17, and I had my first bass boat my senior year of high school. I was 17 my senior year of high school. But that's my first Cajun with the old Johnson on the back. I believe it was 115, maybe a 95, 115, something like that. And I essentially blew that thing up in about 5 trips. I think I didn't know how to warm up the engine and was taking it out early in the morning and just completely blew that thing up. So I was team trolling motor for another year or two until I finally figured out how to fix that. Sold that boat a year later, got into my first aluminum. This was a tracker, 17-foot tracker V. And believe it or not, this is probably one of the best boats I've ever been in. Literally, this is an amazing, amazing boat. I only had like a 40 horse on it, but man, that thing fired up. Obviously, 40 horse, it'll fire up anytime. And then eventually got into bigger tournaments. This is when I won a big tournament on the Columbia River at 19 years old. I think there was like 48 boats in this tournament. And this is when I had my champion. And anyway, so went on and did a lot of business. My background is in business. If you want to look at that, go to jamessmiley.com if you want to like see my business background. But me and my buddies IPO'd a software company, did a whole bunch of stuff. But I always stayed tournament fishing, sponsored up, and believe it or not, I have owned 16 fiberglass bass boats, and I want to say like 5 or 6 tiny boats if you include the Bantam and the little boats and stuff. And so I had 2 years where I had 2 boats. I had a local boat that was sponsored by Buffalo Wild Wings. You guys might see those pictures around. And then I had what's called a team boat that was a Ranger that I would fish the tours with. So I would go out and take that one touring around and then fish locally, like in California. This is when I moved to Cali. I moved to Cali about 20 years old. So fished all that stuff, Arizona, all the desert lakes and stuff. To be honest, never really excelled as much as I wanted to down there. Just when I started figuring it out, I moved to Texas. So I moved to Texas and lived here now for 10 years. So like 11 or 12 years in SoCal and then 10 years here. I'm 41 now. And that's kind of a summary of my background, So anyway, I've got 4 kids. I'm single. So Nick Barr, we grew up fishing against each other, believe it or not. So when I was like in my 20s, Nick was like this teenager, like 15, 16-year-old phenom. And I always paid attention to him because he kind of was doing what I did, but yet like he was using the internet and stuff, and he was using things that were just coming out, like technology and stuff that was just coming out. So there were videos and things like that, and he was just a very well-spoken guy. And so anyway, lost touch with him for a while, but then we reconnected. That is why I'm here. I'm happy to be just sharing content, sharing information, and just being a part of the community. So anyway, appreciate you guys. Look forward to connecting with you. And overall, I'm just a dude. That's what you're going to realize about me. I'm a dude. I believe in hard work. I believe in earning your keep and getting out there and being a good American if you're from America or a citizen or wherever you're from. So anyway, I appreciate you guys, and I look forward to connecting with you.